The ideation process that you describe of like how you actually came up with this idea is fascinating. And keeping in mind people watching this at this stage of the journey, they're wanting to start something.
Yeah.
What did you learn going through that process for actually finding a great idea?
Everybody's advice on how to come up with ideas is crap. You have to do it your own way. So I remember hearing ideas. This was on the process from a professor in business school. Was like, the only way to think of ideas and come up with great ideas is if they are authentic to you. Yeah. And so that is scary because I come from like a supply chain world and a politics world. So does that mean I'm constrained only by those spaces? Right. But then I started looking and I started thinking of Elon Musk and I'm like, what's he authentic to? Well, he's authentic to how to pay online, how to build spaceships and cars. No, like he had to learn that. Or like, for me, it was a few approaches. And I think I put them in a few buckets. Yeah. One is you find things that you actually care about and are pain points to you. The risk and fear in that, we have to figure. So the pros of that are that you are going to understand that need exceptionally well. The cons of that are you have to make sure that that pain point or problem isn't to a small group of folks. Yeah. And what often you see here in the Valley is somebody finds a pain point that only applies to them. And what that usually means, it only applies to like rich, white, straight men. Right? Which is who are also good at tech or something like this, right? So but you can find something like that. I am allergic to nuts, so like I would love to help build something that helps determine if there's nuts in food, right? But then you have to start to see, okay, how many people actually have a nut allergy? How many people would care about that, et cetera? Another approach is you go top down and you look at trends and you say, what are the trends going to happen? Where is the world going to be in 5-10 years? How do I start to plan for that and build something that the world needs? The other approach, which is let's find a user group that I care about and let's figure out what their needs are. Yeah. And so the ones, and then the last one is something that matches your values. So for me, when the ideas actually work, it usually combines those. For me, that was important. It actually had to combine all of them. That's not true for everybody. That's not how everybody thinks about it, but that's how I think about it.
So what advice would you give, having gone through that process, aspiring entrepreneurs on the hunt for great business ideas, about finding and evaluating great ideas? What would you say to them?
I think my biggest advice is I feel like entrepreneurs are people that are naturally critical because otherwise they would not come up with an idea that could be great. And so I think each of them needs at a point to have like a leap of faith and commit to working on something. And one thing that I've seen too many times is entrepreneurs being too skeptical of their own idea. Like if you want to know whether I thought that front was a good idea for the first 2 years, no. I thought it was a terrible idea. Right. And whenever people were asking me about whether I would think front would be successful, I wasn't very sure about that. But I committed to it and I knew that if I faced every reality, then it would lead to something okay. Because I felt like in this space, something could be changed and improved.
What advice would you give entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, kind of on the hunt for that great business idea?
I think it's really to think through what you're passionate about, where you think you have an unfair advantage, and to write it down and distill it down to what's the thing you believe to be true that the rest of the world hasn't yet figured out. And for us, it was that people would buy services online. People would buy home services online. And that insight was one that we could very clearly articulate. We could write down and we could prove or disprove it. So the more you can become really specific about why you believe you're starting a business or what hypothesis you have, the more likely it is that you'll be able to figure out whether you're right or not.
Talking more generally, I guess, advice for aspiring founders, what advice would you give them, about finding, developing, and evaluating these business ideas? Because it's easy to come up with, a lot of ideas, but to actually work out whether they have merit.
Yeah. I think looking, I'm kind of going through the same process myself. Like as I get to explore lots of ideas. Yeah. Now that I'm on a break, and one thing that I don't like about myself is that I feel like I overanalyze things too much because now I have some experience with thinking it through. I almost overanalyze it too much because I have some experience about why something would fail, why I think something would fail, but it's probably not necessarily true either. Right? Like I probably would never start Snapchat. Like no logical person would probably start Snapchat unless they had like enough naivete.
Yeah, that's so true.
And so I think there's a lot of value in having that naivete. So the only thing that I would say that I think is like mostly a troublesome problem is, it's almost better to have your naivete, I would say. But the only other thing that I would say is that really think through whether the market that you're going after is big. That's it. Like keep the naivete, combine that with whether your market is large, and you're like right in this. I think you're in the right in the sweet spot of like what it takes to make something potentially big. Because there are a lot of company ideas that can never break through. They'll never get past a certain dollar amount, even if it's a good business. They'll never raise the money that they need because an investor can't see whether their return would be any more than 2 or 3x over a large span of time. If the market's not large enough.
Yeah, that's very true. It's like that old piece of advice. I think Steve Jobs might have said it, or popularized it at least, which stay hungry, stay foolish, right? Stay foolish, stay naive.
Yeah.